Welcome to Strategic Moves with Lou. I'm Mike Hendren. I am a broadcaster and also a licensed real estate agent. And with us, sitting right here in the middle, is Lou Untitled. She's the broker with Strategic Realty here in Wichita Falls, Texas, hence the name Strategic Moves with Lou. Lou, how you doing?
Good. It's a beautiful day in America today.
It's always a beautiful day in America. We woke up today and the sun was shining.
Yeah.
And it's always shining as far as I'm concerned.
And the stock market's crazy.
And the stock market's crazy. But one thing we're here to talk about real estate. We're here to talk about all the things that go along with it. And there are so many topics we can cover. And we're going to try to hit something new each episode of this that we do, something new and different each time. But there's no shortage of information that we can cover with the audience out here. Absolutely none whatsoever. And so we're just going to get right into it here. You've got a couple of guests you brought with you here to the studio today.
Yes, and here to my right, depending
You're
on
right.
where, okay.
You're right.
My right is Lanell Krueger. She is one of my agents over at Strategic Realty. Go ahead.
Hello.
Tell us who you are.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Lanell Krueger. I've been in real estate a little longer than 3 years. I enjoy it.
She's one of my go-to real estate agents for anything and everything rental-wise.
Oh, yeah.
If I've got a rental, I know that she's right on top of it.
And that's probably something a lot of people don't think about with real estate agents is rentals.
Mm-hmm.
You can utilize the services of a real estate agent. If you're looking to rent or rent to own or anything like that, you can utilize the services of a real estate agent to get that done for you. Because sometimes just finding a rental can be harder than finding a home to buy.
Right.
That can be a real challenge.
And I mean, now that you mentioned rent to own, just as an FYI to the audience, rent to own are not enforceable. So if you ever get into a situation where you're thinking about doing a rent to own, don't do it. It's never advisable. You can do an owner finance, which is a little bit different.
Right.
But don't do a rent to own because as far as the court is concerned, it is not a valid contract.
And this is why you employ the services of a real estate professional to get these questions answered.
Yes.
And get them answered correctly every time. Now, who's our other guest here with us today?
Here we have Jody, and she is with Landmark Title, one of our local title companies here, and they are excellent services. Jody?
Yeah. So, Jody, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Landmark.
Well, I'm Jody Bessie. I've been at Landmark almost 5 years. I'm an owner, but I also do a little bit of everything. So I was in the oil and gas title industry for 12 years before I went to work at Landmark. So I can read title on anything.
She's my expert. Anytime I have a really big problem that I need to deal with, I call Jody.
Yeah, I do closings. I've got escrow girls that do the processing, but mainly I just kind of run everything. And like Lou said, if somebody has a problem or something they don't understand with the title issue, they call me. So
Right. And you're an excellent expert to have for
so
anybody
whenever
to
you decide that you
business.
want, one of the biggest problems that we have in this industry is really when it comes to titles and getting a clear title. So if you decide that you want to sell your property and you've never sold it before, or you might have some sort of issue, you definitely want to make sure that you have a clear title.
Right.
And there's so many different variations of what can happen. I mean, when you bought the house, if this is the first house that you bought and you bought it using a title company, then the likelihood of there being an issue is very nil. Very, very little issues will happen if you use a title company. But if you purchased it through an attorney or, if you just had a friend write up a deed for you, then there are going to be some issues on the title.
That's what a lot of people I think don't understand is, well, why do I need a title policy? Well, because you don't want to buy a piece of property that has a federal tax lien against it because it transfers. It stays with the property.
Or a mowing lien.
Lien, anything, yeah.
Or what is it? Child support lien on it too. I mean, child support can also be a factor. I even had customers that had a hospital lien for a hospital visit that they didn't even do in this state that was filed here in the state.
Yeah.
And then now they got to pay this $7,000 hospital bill, and they didn't even know that they were sued for it or whatever the case is.
We get that a lot. Well, my neighbors had this house forever. I trust them. Well, you may trust them, but you don't have any idea what's been filed against them, while they've lived there. One big deal you and I talk about, there's MERP liens, which is a whole nother subject, but it's basically if somebody passes away that we're in a facility with Medicaid, they can file a lien. People don't know that. I've had some that come back 20 years and they're like, well, she's been gone. It doesn't matter. Those MERP liens don't go anywhere. The government wants their money.
Here's one little funny story, but there's certain things that you really understand in the real estate world, like words. We understand words, right?
Yeah.
An affidavit of heirship makes sense. You can, it's an affidavit of heirship. But there's one specific type of title or deed that you put those three words together and you wouldn't even think that it would make any sense. I mean, the word lady, the word bird, and you also know the word deed. But if you put a lady, bird, deed word together, you don't know that actually makes a thing, Right. So, and people don't know these different types of deeds that there are. I mean, there's a special warranty deed, there's a quick claim deed, there's
deed with no warranty,
right,
and a special warranty deed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, the term Lady Bird deed, does it actually get its name from Lady Bird Johnson?
No, it does not.
Okay, because someone asked me this very question recently, and they said, I've heard about this Lady Bird deed, and I said, I know a little bit about it. I haven't had a lot of experience with it yet myself. And they said, was that named for Lady Bird, which Lady Bird Johnson was the First Lady Johnson, President Johnson's wife in the 1960s, President Lyndon Johnson. That was his wife. I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with it. So how does it get its name, and what is it exactly?
I don't know really how it got the term, but I try to look at it as like a free bird. So I'm getting of age, and I don't want to deed my house right now. I still want to live in the house. I put a ladybird deed on my house where I go ahead and transfer the, in a deed, say I'm gonna leave ownership to my daughter. Right. But as long as I live here, I still have control over it.
But with that type of deed in place,
you have life estate.
Yeah.
Right. But with that type of deed in place, the moment you draw your last breath, whomever you've assigned that to, it transfers immediately to that individual or individuals if it's more than one child, for example.
It's already been transferred. That's what she's saying, is that the deed has already been transferred. The only thing that's not transferred is the life estate.
Right.
It basically cuts out probating because it transfers. Right. It helps with taxes. You don't have to pay an inheritance tax on it. There's 4 or 5 different things that people do it so it's easier.
Right.
But a lot of title companies don't really accept them. So that?
We accept them as long as there's not any issues with the property. They're good in the state of Texas. The other thing, quit claim deeds are
those are a big no-no for most places.
The state of Texas, though, the laws have changed where we can accept quit claim deeds in, say, divorce cases, because a lot of times you're not going to get the ex to come sign out of title. But as long as the divorce states that the property transferred, the quit claim deed is acceptable. But other than that, no. And the reason it's not acceptable is because it's not a warranty. I mean, you don't know what's on it. So if there is a quit claim deed, we get a warranty deed to basically clean that title up.
Yeah. Now the warranty deed, that's what you want. That's the most desirable.
Yeah, that's the most general.
That's a deed that's been fully examined. The research has been done. The homework's been done on it. You've got good deed to that property,
right,
with a warranty deed, and you've got no problems to worry about down the line. And if you do, there's title insurance that covers you on that stuff. So.
The problem we see a lot of times though is people create their own warranty deeds. They'll print one off the computer and here I'm going to give you my property, and
legal.com.
Yeah, and that doesn't. Well, I have a warranty deed, okay, but your neighbor just wrote it on a piece of paper and handed it to you. There's really no warranty.
And
there.
What is it? Meets and bounds is not
accurate.
Or it wasn't written the way it was supposed to. They just copied the legal description from the tax appraisal.
Right. And that type of deed, I mean, that probably wouldn't even be enforceable in a court, would it, Lou? I mean, I wouldn't. I would think it'd be very tough to have something that you just printed off the computer.
Most title companies are going to want to redo it.
Yeah.
It is a legal document, though, if it's recorded.
It's notarized and recorded, yeah.
Because once you record it, this is a really funny story because we had this actually happen, is a guy deeded a property to his ex-wife, and she didn't know.
Oh.
But it was not a good reason that he did it. It was for claims and stuff like that. And so, yeah, if it's filed, it's legitimately at that point a warranty deed. But if you don't have a title policy, it didn't mean that the title was clear when they gave you the warranty deed.
Right. There was a story recently in the headlines.
Yes, makes you responsible for that lien now.
Or anything that's on there.
Well, there was a story recently in the headlines where a guy had, I think he'd ended up killing himself. It was something criminal going on, but he had used a quitclaim deed to give 2 homes to a woman in California, and she said she had no idea that he had deeded these homes to her through quitclaim deeds. One in 2020 and one in 2021.
Is this the bomber guy?
It's the bomber guy, yeah.
Oh,
and
the Tennessee bomber
and
guy.
he, just basically gave this woman, these homes were worth total, I think, something close to $800,000.
Yes. Wow.
And she allegedly had no idea. How is that even possible that someone could do that? That someone could
because you can. You just can do it.
As long as you have the ownership, you are legally able
without the recipient's knowledge.
Yeah, because there's no place for them to sign.
Yeah.
They don't have to acknowledge that they're receiving it. It's just you signing it over to somebody else.
And would that even, well, let's take Texas, because Texas obviously is your area of expertise. In Texas, would something like that even be enforceable or legal? Could the person that receives that, even if they had no knowledge of it, could they legally do something with that property? Could they own it, transfer it, sell it themselves?
With it being a quick claim deed is the problem.
As long as there's no heirs that come along and claim the property or have a right to the property.
And in that case, I don't think there was anybody, was there?
I don't think so.
Didn't have any children or something?
In Texas, see, if he did that and died intestate and he had quit claimed that to her before he died, if he had heirs, they could come back
could come back and claim it,
yes,
or claim their 50% or whatever the case may be.
How common an issue is that for someone to sell a property, and we've gone through the legal process, we've got a warranty deed on the property, and then 5 years, 10 years down the road, a child, a cousin, someone pops up and goes, "Hey, I should have had a claim on this property." How common is that, really?
Not very.
I've never seen it myself in the length of time that I've been doing real estate.
I've only had one deal where we actually tracked down and found that there was a kid somewhere, but they had passed away, and then they didn't have any kids. It was a mess, but the lady that actually ended up with the interest absolutely fought for her interest. She wanted it.
I didn't think it was a really terribly common problem.
That's what
I've heard about
That's what title's for, because you track down and make sure there's nobody out there.
There will be some times that we have some major issues. Oh, we had one in Electra.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, it was a nightmare. The gentleman that purchased the property, sold the property, he passed away, or he purchased the property with another person in common. Like they weren't married, they weren't. I don't know if they were siblings or anything like that. But he purchased this property in Electra, and then she passed away, and then so he got 100% of the
right of survivorship.
Right of survivorship,
Right.
Yeah, because the deed that they had filed was one with right of survivorship.
Yes.
Okay.
So meaning if she passes away, then the other 50% goes straight to him instead of to her heirs. And so whenever he passed away, he left the property to his son, and then his son sold the property to another party, and then she got dementia and wound up in a nursing home. And so her aunt was trying to sell the property in her behalf.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like Twisty turny. Oh my gosh, that was one of yours. It took us a year and a half to get this one sold, but we finally did it this month.
Yes. Is that the one that you called me about?
Yes, we finally found it.
That is very complicated. And
They do get very complicated.
And I can see where a situation like that also, depending on the property involved and the number of people involved, could get really expensive too in terms of legal action if there's a lot of back and forth,
Well, in this particular instance, the title company told us that the only way to cure it would be to get an attorney to, clear up the title, like go to a judge and get it cleared up with a judge. So yeah, that could have wound up costing at least a couple $1,000s. Yeah. But eventually we figured out that wasn't the case, that it was a good transfer.
I'm surprised you could get out of it that cheap, actually.
Well, I think that's what the attorney had told us, that it was going to be like $2,500 to be able to at least file this with the judge.
Right.
Now,
but you've got to read your title and you've got to know what you're looking at, because like one line, right of survivorship, says it all.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the one thing that cleared everything up, is the right of survivorship.
Well, bottom line is you've got to use a title company, and you've got to have a warranty deed, and you've got to make sure that way you can ensure that you've got good deed to the property, you've got clear title, everything's going to be okay. So, ladies, walk us through here. When someone purchases a home, they start this process of buying a new home. And
buying or selling,
or selling. Well, selling or buying, either one. I mean, but you're selling a home. You at some point. At what point do you get the title company involved in the process? When do they step into the picture?
Well, first you would need to contact a real estate agent.
Yes.
And you decide that you want to sell your property. The most important thing really is to figure out in what market we're dealing. Right now, we're dealing with a seller's market. Yes. I mean, you can't list anything right now fast enough. I mean, it just, as soon as you list it, it sells. So that is number one. And you don't want to just say, oh, well, Zillow says my property is worth $150,000. Oh. That's the worst thing that you can do. You want to really talk to a real estate agent so that we can give you an accurate estimate of value, because you have no idea how many thousands of dollars you're leaving on the table.
That's true.
So you really, even if you don't want to pay a commission, or you say, oh, real estate agents don't earn their money. Well, guess what? Yes, we do. We may not work as hard as some agents may not work so hard, but a good portion of us will be really hardworking.
A good dedicated agent is going to work hard for you, because number one, they want to earn that commission. Number two, the only way they're going to earn that commission is if they sell your property.
Right. It doesn't cost anything to list with a real estate agent. Nothing costs anything until we sit down and we sign and we sell. So getting that CMA, which is cost market analysis, is really crucial to selling your property. And a real estate agent is going to have all the tools and all the access to everything. I mean, we're going to look at several different formats. I mean, we're going to look in MLS. We're going to also look on the tax appraisal. We're going to combine all of that information and be able to provide you with everything that you need. Not to mention, we can go over to your house and take a look at the property and assess what things you might need to fix here and there in order to maximize the amount of money that you receive. Because that's the whole bottom line here, is to make sure that you're getting the most for your buck.
And that's another important thing too, is when that real estate agent comes to your home to look at the home and kind of help you evaluate the situation, they're an impartial party at that point. They don't have an emotional attachment to this property, so the real estate agent is going to see things perhaps that you might miss.
Correct.
They're going to look at things in a little different light, and have a more of a objective view rather than such a subjective view of it. Because when you're emotionally attached to it, you may think it's worth a lot more than it really is. That's another thing too. You can price a home so high that you scare potential buyers away from it, can't you?
Or you just make it so that it stays on the market a little bit longer than necessary. Right. So, and that's another point too, is that we know what will sell for the most money. Like, for instance, there's different kinds of loans. There's an FHA, there's a VA, and then there's conventional. And each one of those types of loans has different requirements. Yes. So an FHA loan and a VA loan, they don't like to see peeling paint. There can't be any wood rot. There can't be. I mean, there's certain things in your home that cannot be in at the time of closing or whenever they do the appraisal. You can't you can't have that at the home. So a real estate agent, we already kind of know what those things are, and we can help spot them out. Like, so I went and did a listing presentation the other day, and the first thing that you see when you walk in the house was torn up carpet. And then, and then we walked around the house, and there was some parts on the eaves that also were concerning to me, because an FHA appraiser would have looked at it and would have said that, that needed to get fixed. Right. So we try to make sure that those things are fixed before we even get it on the market. That way it's never even an issue. So that's another good reason for us to call a real estate agent, so that we can help you triage your house before you sell it.
Right.
And I can say on the title side of that,
yes, people
who do for sale by owner don't understand those things. So the buyer has a real estate agent. The appraiser comes out, and of course there's peeling paint. What they don't understand is they just pushed closing back, because now you have to do all those repairs and then have it reappraised, so that FHA will or have the FHA inspector.
Right. So you can save yourself a lot of time.
Costing more money, because every time that FHA or VA appraiser has to go out to the property, it winds up costing another $150.
Right.
So, there's certain things that we can do to help you facilitate the process and make it so that it's a smooth transition.
Right. Well, and again, to the importance of the title company and the processes that you guys do, you provide really an almost invaluable legal process here for the buyer and the seller.
Yes, and a lot of we are not legal. We can't give legal advice. We can't tell you what you need to do.
Right,
Our job is to clean, but a lot of people think that, we can clean it up. We order the documents that you need.
Right.
One thing that I think every realtor knows too is people don't understand how important it is to have your assets in line in case anything happens. Because the hardest part of selling a home for someone who is deceased is whether they have a will or not. And when there's
needs to get probated, and
when there's no will, it's a lot tougher situation. You can't just sell it to your cousin.
Yeah, let's go back to the Ladybird deed for just a moment. How does that work with someone if they have a will? Do they need, is a Ladybird deed an unnecessary instrument to get into? Or if they don't have a will, is the Ladybird deed still something, can that take the place of a will?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll take place.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will hurt anything to have a will and a Ladybird deed.
The Ladybird deed just protects the person that's still living in the house.
Gotcha.
But it helps whoever they're giving the property to with the transfer, the tax issue, and all inheritance stuff.
It eliminates some steps in that process.
Yes.
Very good. Well, what other topics with the title company do we need to cover today that you want to cover? Is there anything that we've missed?
We probably have tons of things that we
I'm sure we have.
So
I'm sure we do.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I love about real estate is that there's never a dull moment. We can always talk about something.
You simply don't run out of things you can discuss.
There are stories. There's always stories.
Yeah.
But there's so much information that can be shared. And and one of the things, and we talked about this before we started recording the show today, is the buyer doesn't pay for any.
That's correct. A buyer is, they don't pay for commission. They might have they'll have closing costs.
Closing costs, yeah.
Once depending on the loan,
but the seller pays the commission.
But the seller is the one that pays the commission. So contacting a real estate agent is only for it's to your benefit.
Right.
Because then you have somebody that's fighting for you. You have somebody that's on your side, and that's going to be able to get you everything that you want, all the repairs that you might need, or have access to everything that needs to get done on the property.
Whether you're looking at what's the value of the home, what should we price it at,
Correct.
All the information.
A buyer's agent is also going to do their own independent CMA on the property that you're planning on purchasing,
right?
So that you can tell if you're getting something that's good value,
right,
or if you're overpaying for it.
It's just that there's such a plethora, if we can use that word, of information, that's
a fun word.
It's one of those $5 words we throw out once in a while. Plethora. There's so much information that you need to be armed with when going into a transaction, whether you're the seller or the buyer. I mean, there's just so much information you really need to have to do this and do this well, whether it's about the title process or any other aspect of it. And one of the things that we're going to do as agents is we've got a list of things we're going to go through with you.
Yeah, we have a checklist.
Yeah, and we're going to cover all those things on this show. But when you sit down with a client, you're going to cover every one of those things in detail. And you're going to do what the agent does. We're going to do a lot of that legwork for you.
Correct. And I mean, people can do all of that legwork, but the process of buying and selling a property is so stressful for most people that adding an agent in there to kind of help you get through that process. I mean, I've had people call me up and say, I've already got a buyer. I don't know what to do. So help me out. And even if you're in that situation where you have a buyer, it would help you to contact a real estate agent. And a lot of real estate agents will do something called a contract fee. So basically they're just helping you write the contract and point you in the right direction of where you need to go and make sure that the title has everything that they need. And you're there to facilitate the process. And I've had so many people that have done that. And I mean, it makes a little bit of money for me. Not quite. It's not going to be, a huge commission check or anything like that. But it makes me feel like I'm helping, which is something that I love to do.
Right.
And from the title standpoint, we get the contract. So if it's a for sale by owner that they filled out the contract, we can't help you with what it says. You filled it out, you signed it. So a lot of times it comes down to, well, I didn't want to pay for that. Well, I didn't want that to happen. Well, you should have got a realtor because now it's in writing. You're in a contract now.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that is a binding contract. If you don't follow it or you break it, you can be sued for it.
Right. Yeah. And going back to the contents of the contract, we can't give we can't practice law. We can't give legal information as realtors. You can as a title company. But at that point, then, if someone doesn't understand something in that contract or any of those documents, then that's where they go to an attorney and say, hey, explain this to me, what the legal terms mean here. That's when you get the lawyer involved.
We can explain what the legal terms are in a contract. Yeah. That's not the issue, is if they want to add or modify the contract.
That's what I mean, yeah.
That, like I've had people that don't want to do the force majeure. They want to take that out of the contract. Which just means that if there's anything that happens to the property, like a lightning strike or a flood or anything like that, then they're not required to fix the property before selling it. But I've had people that say, I just want to take that out of the contract. We can't do that. We can't just remove something from the contract because this is a promulgated form by attorneys. So if you want to change anything to a contract that would modify or change anything that's already in there, then you would, need to talk to an attorney.
Yeah, that's where that comes into play. Well, we've only got a minute or two left here in the show. Is there anything at all that you can think of that we haven't covered on the title side that you would like to include in today's show?
We'll have some time for questions. Yeah, so like our page, subscribe to our podcast, and if you have any questions in the next show, we will try and answer those questions.
Right.
And Lanell is available to anybody that wants to call and get some questions, or if they're interested in selling their property. She can definitely give you guys all the information that you need in order to get the process done. And right now, it's the best time to sell. We're kind of in a perfect storm right now when it comes to market values.
It's really crazy right now.
I mean, it's really, really crazy. You might have paid $50,000 for your home, and you might be able to sell it for $80,000, which is a crazy, gain on your property. Gains on personal property is not taxable. So up until like $500,000,
I think it is. Yeah.
I think it's $500,000 if you're married, and $250,000 if you're single.
I think now, does that just apply to your residence?
Yes, it only applies to your homestead.
Okay, gotcha.
So. If you want to sell your property, now is a very good time to list with with a real estate agent.
So
Interest rates are
Right.
really low
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And that won't last forever.
No.
At some point, they'll go up a little bit.
At some point, they're going to go up a little bit, and at some point, market values are also going to change. Now, it may take a couple of years for that to happen.
Sure.
Because we do have a lot of REOs that are going to be coming up in the next year or two once that gets settled.
Yeah.
But, that's really, right now we have a lot of buyers and not enough property on the market. We have a very high inventory of buyers. So, now if you're thinking about selling within now and the next 6 months, the time is now.
Right.
And you can call Lanell, and she can be your expert realtor.
Well, Strategic Realty is the name of the real estate agency. And if people want to reach out to us, the phone number is
940-689-7900.
There you go. And of course, the webpage is strategicrealty.net.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And we can get you in touch with Strategic Hero.
Yeah. And you can go there and you can search the properties available in the local area at strategicrealty.net as well.
That's correct.
All right. So join us next time for another episode of Strategic Moves with Lou. See you then.